always know that you wanted to be a nurse?
From about the time I was 10 years old, I realized, what my mother did and everything. I want to be like hers. Yeah, I always wanted to be like her. Strong lady.
Yeah, so you were a nurse. Would you be able to tell us any impactful stories that you've had in your time around the time of the Vietnam War as
Mhm.
a nurse? Is there
Oh,
anything that
golly. You
sticks
mean
out?
as with when I worked at Fort Campbell or?
Yes, at Fort
Okay.
Campbell.
Okay. Fort Campbell. Okay. Yeah. When I started out at Fort Campbell, they had me on a pediatric unit. So I was taking care of children of service people. And there were some pretty sick little kitties in there and some things that went on. And I was only there for a few months. And then they took me out and put me on into the hospital where they needed me on different um, med surg units and things like that. And one of the things that was different about Fort Campbell was that it was a basic training post, and the guys got basic training there, all the kids right out of high school, and then they usually sent right off to Vietnam from there because that's where 101st was. So we would have hundreds of recruits going through all the time, and I can remember being on the they called them URI floors. Uh, there is a disease that goes around in where you're in close spaces with a lot of people that's deadly, and it's meningitis. There's a certain form of meningitis, and the first symptoms of meningitis are those of a cold. So every recruit that complained of cold, sore throat, whatever, they were put in the hospital until we could clear them up, and then we had to watch all of them for the signs of that. And one of the things we had to check their body for was called petechiae or purple spots. And but then we would have there were like two or three floors I'd be responsible for at one time, and there would be like 100 people on each floor. I mean, it was really just a lot of guys, and they all had their heads shaved, they all had blue bathrobes on, and a little funny story about that. When I was up there watching the corpsman give the meds and stuff, and kind of looking at the guys and seeing which one pull out and which ones I had to check. And this one guy came through, and I said, "Are you from Columbus, Ohio?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Oh, did you work at Weber's grocery store right across the street?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "You were a bag boy?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I was a student there." And he goes, "Oh, I wouldn't recognize you. You all looked alike in uniform."
That is
And he
funny.
was one of like 300 people I was looking at that day. I just remembered him because he was a single person, and the one thing there. But it was funny that I recognized somebody that would. What are the odds of that happening? That, but yeah, because they really did all look alike too. So, but anyway, the other thing I saw the outcome of what happens if somebody got meningitis, and if they got it and we couldn't treat them in time. I don't know whether it was a time factor or how strong the virus was or the meningitis was. That it was deadly. And I went over to the medical units where they had the ones who were called their families in because they weren't going to make it, and the blotches went all over their bodies, and they were just miserable, and they were. I mean, it was a horrible thing to watch. So it's really opened me up to like we really have to watch these guys, that are coming through because they had 4 or 5 guys in there, and their parents were there saying goodbye to them, and they hadn't even gotten through basic. It was to me that was just that was I couldn't put myself in the place of the families. It was so sad. And they were young guys, right out of high school.